All right, gang, let's get started. So great job, first of all, on being here. You've started the week off the right way. I do know that. So I want to give you a congratulations for that. So let's just get started. I want to read to you this list very quickly. There's so much of it here that I have to read off of the list because there's been that much of it. And as I'm going through this list, I want you to think about how you can relate to it, because I'm not the only one who has had struggles. I'm just going to list some of my top struggles in life. And I want you to think about your struggles and how you can relate to this, because the truth is that all of us have struggled at one point or another in our lives, and probably a lot. Have probably had a lot of significant challenges in our lifetimes. And the fact is there will continue to be challenges, but I'm going to go through this. And as I'm going through it, I really want you to just think about how you relate to it. Maybe not the specific challenges, but similar challenges or challenges of that degree or even greater. So I wrote down here, number one, that I grew up in trailers. In fact, I never did live in a quote unquote house. Now I grew up in homes because my mother and father made our trailers homes. But the fact is I never grew up in a house. They were always trailers. And I was known in our community as trailer trash. People in our community referred to my family as trailer trash. That's a fact. Number two, I wrote down here that my dad spent 3 years in prison. Before I was born, he spent 3 years in the Utah State Penitentiary. And that obviously had an impact on the family and the perception that people had of the family. The next thing I wrote down is this, that there was no one in my family prior to my generation, my brother's generation, my sister's generation, who actually graduated from high school. No one in my family on both sides had ever done that. Number three, I wrote down here that I was put into a second grade special ed class because I was having a difficult time learning how to read, which is true. And then I wrote down, in ninth grade, I flunked out of English, which I did. And I was fortunate enough to have a teacher who, even though he flunked me during the year, at the end of the year, he showed mercy on me. He felt sorry for me, I guess. He changed all of those F's to a D so I wouldn't have to repeat ninth grade English. I'm so grateful for that. The next thing that I wrote down here is that I flunked out of law school, which I did. And in fact, when I flunked out of law school, they wrote me a letter and said, if you're not going to average anything greater than a D, you should go do something else. That was their way of saying, don't come back. And so I had to go back to Utah, leaving Birmingham, Alabama, with no plan B. I had no plan B, and I had to figure out what that was. Well, fortunately, it was after doing some research, it was real estate. And it's the reason I'm here today. The next thing I wrote down is this, that I went broke in my first 4 years of being in real estate. And the truth is, gang, I was actually broke before I ever got started because I had $40,000 in debt because of law school and college up to that point. So I was in a $40,000 hole before I even got started in real estate. Now, as I go through this list, again, I want you to just relate to it, not maybe specific instances that I'm referring to, but just the fact that you have had struggles in your own life. The next thing that I wrote down is this. I went broke again in 2009. So not only did I start real estate broke, but I had done, after figuring out real estate and how to do it, I had done fairly well. In fact, I had gotten to a point where not only was I broke and in debt by $40,000, but then I got to a point where I literally was worth millions of dollars. And then in 2009, lost it all. I lost millions, got to the point where I literally had nothing left. There was nothing. Everything had to go. Had to sell the house, the cars, everything, even some personal effects, just to have money to survive. Now, I want you to ask you, number one, how do you relate to that? Because that list, I didn't give it to you for sympathy. That is not why. Why would I share that list with you? It's not to get your sympathy. It's to give you some perspective that people go through life and we will have to struggle. The real question isn't whether we will struggle. The question is, how will we respond to it? What are we going to do in the face of challenge? Because as long as we're alive, it is guaranteed there will be challenge. There will be things that we will have to do. It reminds me when I was 17, I had a very close relationship with my mom. It was very close. She was an amazing woman. But I remember sitting at the kitchen countertop. We didn't have a kitchen table, a separate table. It was actually a counter integrated into the counter of the kitchen. And I was sitting there and she was standing next to me. And she always had this Post-it note, these little square, like 3M Post-it notes. And that's where she would write down all the tasks that she had to do. My mom was obsessed with maintaining her list. And one day, apparently, she was just exasperated. I don't know. I mean, she was very frustrated. And I could hear it in her voice. And she was complaining that her list never goes away. I mean, she would not stop complaining about it. Well, apparently, I'd had enough of her complaining about it. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? As long as you're alive, you will always have a list and challenges to address. I said, so be grateful that you have a list and you have these challenges. And she looked at me like, what? And she paused and she thought about it, obviously, because she didn't do what I think she should have done, was reach up and probably slap my face. But she just stopped for a second and she reflected on it. And she said, you know what? You're right. And I never heard my mom complain about her list again. Now, there are 3 things that I want to share with you this morning. 3 ideas, I guess, as it relates to this idea of there will be struggle as long as we're alive. And really, how do we respond to it? What's the best way to respond to life, I guess? Well, number 1, I want you to write down is that the struggle is necessary. Write that down. The struggle is necessary. Let's set aside the fact that life's going to throw it at us regardless. But gang, it's more than life is just simply going to throw it at us, the struggle. The fact is, it is very necessary for our development to get to the next level. You know, I've told the story before about the boy who saw the cocoon and he walked by it every day. And as he would walk by it, he would admire it, only just spending a few seconds there because he was always late getting to school. Well, on about the 3rd day, he noticed that it didn't seem that the cocoon was making any progress. So what he decided to do was, with his little pocket knife, just slice open the cocoon to give the butterfly a chance to get out of the cocoon and to go on to become a butterfly. Well, he did that. And the next day he noticed that the butterfly had gotten out of the cocoon almost entirely, but was still this little plump ball of fluid and these shriveled up wings. And then he went by the next day and noticed that, in fact, the butterfly was dead. Now, here's the point. The reason that that happened is because a butterfly, before it becomes a butterfly, is a caterpillar. And in that transition from caterpillar to butterfly, you know, it grows wings, but the wings are not full. See, the reason that the cocoon, or the reason that the caterpillar has a plump body is because it's full of fluid that in the struggle, when it struggles to get out of that cocoon, because of the pressure, the force that it applies to the wings in trying to get out, and the flexing that it does with its entire self, its entire body, it forces the fluid into the wings and fills the wings up so that ultimately, when it does break free of the cocoon, it can actually fly away. And the boy, thinking that it was doing the caterpillar, the butterfly, a favor, had actually circumvented the very process that the butterfly needed to go through in order to become a fully developed butterfly and to live a full life. So I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the struggles that you have faced or the struggles that you are currently facing. And are you facing those head on? Are you looking at them as an inconvenience, as a roadblock, or are you looking at them as it's absolutely what's necessary for you to progress, to grow, to get to the next level? See, gang, I want you to think about something. It's an amazing statistic. How many of you have purchased a lottery ticket hoping to win the lottery? I mean, come on, be honest. I think everybody has. I've purchased a lottery ticket before. Some of you may still continue to purchase lottery tickets. An interesting statistic, though, is this, that 70% of those who win the lottery go broke in the first 2 to 3 years. It doesn't matter how much they win, whether they win $1 million or tens of millions of dollars. Statistically, 70% of lottery winners go broke within the first 2 to 3 years. And the question is, why is that? Well, the obvious answer, I think, is that they didn't have to struggle to get it, so they don't value it the way those who have to work for it do. See, the struggle is absolutely necessary to get to the next level. Having the money did not catapult them to the next level. It just meant they had more money in the bank account, but it didn't mean that they were the sort of person who had the capacity to handle it. See, it's the struggles that we go through that make it possible for us to handle future struggles in life. So how are you looking at struggle? How are you looking at all of the challenges that life throws at you? Are you interpreting it the right way? It is such a critical distinction. It's the reason I'm sharing this with you this morning. I want to ask you, how do you look at struggle? How do you interpret it? Do you run away from it? Do you shy from it? Or do you look at it and say, it doesn't matter what the challenge is, I'm going to face it head on. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get through it, to get around it, to get over it, to succeed. And the fact is, if you're listening to this today, you've had so many struggles. I would challenge you to sit down and write a laundry list of all of the struggles you've gone through, just the way that I did. And give yourself some credit as to how resilient you are and what you have been through, and to recognize that whatever current challenge that you're going through, or the challenges that you would have to go through to get to the next level to live the life that you want, that you have the capacity. It is within you to do it. Even if they're challenges you've never experienced before, that you still have it within you to get through it. But the key is, how do you look at it? Do you embrace struggle, or do you try to avoid it? The second thing that I want to share with you is this about what do we have to do to get through life and to succeed at a higher level at each stage of our lives? Well, the second thing that I want you to write down is this, that your beliefs are what really matter most. See, it's your beliefs that matter the most, in my opinion. See, I don't think that we give our beliefs enough weight. I think that we look at all the external forces, all of the challenges, everything that we have to go through, right? And we talk about, well, it's the competition, the things that they do that undermine us in the competitive market, giving away their commissions, or it's low inventory, or it's the politics, who's in office, who's out of office. We point to all of these external forces, and we don't take responsibility for the thing that matters most, which is this. What's going on right here are beliefs. Really, the operating system that controls everything that we do on a daily basis. See, I don't think we give it enough credit. What we believe is exceptionally important. You've heard me share the story about the young elephant that is taught how to be controlled, how to become docile, to not really reach its full potential. When the trainer ties a rope to the leg of the young elephant, which is then anchored to a post in the ground. And as much as the young elephant tries to break free from this contraption, it can't, because it's simply not strong enough. And as much as it tries, it never is successful at breaking free. And because it doesn't succeed, over time, it tries less and less and less until it just simply gives up. And then once it gives up, then they remove the rope, and now they have the ability to train the elephant. So that now that you've got this animal that weighs 10, 12, 13, as much as 15,000 pounds, right, could easily break free from a rope, now doesn't even require a rope in order to be controlled to do what its trainer wants it to do. It's crazy. A beast that is 15,000 pounds strong believes that it can't break free, and so therefore doesn't try to. It speaks to the power of mindset. You know, when Roger Bannister in the 1940s was trying to break the 4-minute mile, doctors said it was impossible. Physicists said it was impossible. The top athletes at the time, the elite athletes at the time in all sports said not possible. And yet Roger Bannister believed that it was. And what is crazy is that when Roger Bannister did it, just within weeks, others broke that same threshold. So it had never been broken before in human history. And yet, as soon as Roger Bannister did it, many other people did. And now what is crazy is that you'll see high school students who can do it. You will see in track meets, in heats, it's happened in history where every one of the runners in all 8 lanes actually broke the 4-minute mile. Well, what changed? Was it technology? Was it the fact that people have better shoes, right? More interesting clothes to wear when they're running? And the answer, gang, is no. No, that is not the answer. The answer is that people now believe that it's possible. And so what was once thought impossible is now known to be possible, and therefore it's easier for people to actually accomplish it. So I ask you that question. What do you believe? See, are you using current circumstances, what people say is impossible, as an excuse to not do it? Or more critically and worse, that what that drunk monkey on your shoulder in your head says is not possible, that you listen to it. What is your excuse? See, our beliefs become excuses. See, most people have a set of beliefs that are excuses to excuse them from becoming their best, of achieving their potential. Man, don't be that person. That is not who you are. It is programmed within you. You have everything that it takes for you to live the life that you want. But it has to be built upon your beliefs, empowering beliefs, beliefs that it's possible, that you can do it. So do you have the right set of beliefs? Are your beliefs empowering? Do they permit you to progress to the next level? Or are they excuses that hold you down, that keep you tied to a rope, that prevent you from moving away and living your best life? And the final thing that I want you to write down is this. We need a compelling reason. Gang, we need a compelling reason. We need a compelling reason to do what most people will never try, that most people will never do. One of my favorite stories about this is the group of women who would get together in a social club. And in the social club, they would invite an expert at something, whatever it is that the person was exceptional at. They would have them come in and perform or talk about it to share how they did it. And one time they had this amazing piano player, a piano virtuoso. She was exceptional at what she did. She was a concert pianist. She would perform for tens of thousands of people on an annual basis. So they had her come in and perform for them in their little small group of about 12 women. And she performed a few pieces, and after her performance, they all congratulated her. Well, one of the women said to her, she said, you know what? I would give anything to play the piano like you. You were absolutely beautiful. It's amazing. And the piano virtuoso said, thank you for the compliment, but no, you wouldn't. And the woman looked at her like, why would you say that? I just paid you a compliment. And she said, no, I really mean it. I would give anything to play the piano like you. And again, the virtuoso said to her, she said, no, you wouldn't. And she said, no, look, I don't mean to be rude, but she said, you wouldn't pay anything to play the piano like I do, because if you were willing to do that, you would already be able to play the piano like I do. Gang, that is such a critical point. See, you won't pay the price of reaching a high level of success in anything, at anything in your life, if you don't have a compelling reason. I don't know what that virtuoso's compelling reason was to become a piano virtuoso, but obviously she had one, because in order to get to that level, you have to go through a lot of struggle. There has to be a lot of commitment, a lot of discipline, a lot of disappointment, and being willing to put up with a lot of failure. It's obvious that she had that figured out. See, gang, there are those in life who start at a deficit in so many different ways. Physically, right? Maybe, not being born with all of the aptitude that you or I may be blessed with, or the fact that maybe they were born in circumstances where there was a lot of struggle, right? Maybe they were given up for adoption and they were in foster homes for some time, or maybe it is that they were raised in a household where there was abuse, there was mental, physical, and emotional abuse. Maybe there was alcoholism. There are all sorts of reasons why, people struggle and why they start out in a deficit. One of my favorite examples of somebody who could argue, they came to life with a deficit is a man by the name of, I want to say it's Eric, I think it's Wyanmere. Yeah. So this guy, I'm just going to tell you what he did. First of all, he summited at the age of 33, as I recall, Mount Everest. Now, very few people in the history of humanity have summited Mount Everest, just a few thousand, not many. And when you think about the billions of people who have lived, that's saying something. Well, Eric did that. But not only did Eric do that, Eric also summited the 7 highest peaks around the world. And then to top it off, he decided that he was going to kayak down the entire Grand Canyon, which is approximately 277 miles. Now, you might say, well, that's all great and that's fantastic. It's pretty phenomenal. But here's what I didn't tell you about Eric Wyanmere. What is interesting about Eric is that, and makes him different from most, is that Eric is blind. So now imagine that. Imagining summiting Mount Everest. Imagine doing it with your full faculties. You can see, you have 4 limbs, right? You're strong, you're healthy, right? You've got your head in the game. Imagine it. And most people won't do it. Most people just simply will not do it. And yet here's this guy who obviously had what most would consider a very distinct disadvantage, and yet he didn't let it stop him. What is that about? Well, I believe it is, and I know it is, that you have to have a compelling reason. I don't know what Eric's compelling reason is or reasons, but it's obvious that he has them. So my question for you is, do you have compelling reasons? See, most people don't have a compelling reason. What most people do is they get into survival mode. And we all know what that feels like. We've all been there and done that at times, to just simply be in survival mode. And what does that mean? Survival mode means that we struggle to the point that we don't have to worry about the basics, right? We don't have to worry about whether we have enough money for food or gas or for the house payment. That we just get to that level so that at least we're not worried about not eating and not having a place to be safe and warm. But then once they get to that level, then they pull back. See, that's survival mode. That's what the average person does. They work just enough just to get by so that they can survive. I mean, the whole phrase of, how are you doing? Oh, I'm surviving. See, that's for most people a literal statement. I am just surviving. I'm surviving. It's the exceptional person. It's the abnormal person. It's the extraordinary person who thrives. They go beyond survival mode to the thriving mode. So my question for you is, gang, is where are you when it comes to these things, when it comes to the struggle, when it comes to your beliefs, and when it comes to the idea of having a compelling reason? Because see, if you're going to achieve your dreams, if you're going to live that life that you say that you want, you're going to have to get right with these ideas, with these concepts. You're going to have to be okay with the struggle. Not just saying it, but really embracing the struggle and understanding that's where your growth comes from, just like the caterpillar who turns into a beautiful monarch butterfly. You're going to have to control your set of beliefs. It's extremely critical, because what I understand, gang, through these struggles that I listed for you, what wasn't important was the struggle itself. It was how I reacted to it. and whether I believed that I could actually get through it. And part of that was making certain that I aligned myself with people who also believed in me. Extremely critical. And then again, finally, as I said, we need to have a compelling reason. What's your compelling reason? Have you connected to a reason that despite the struggles, despite the price that needs to be paid, that you will push forward to achieve that thing? Gang, what I know is that it's programmed with each and every one of you, that you're capable of doing it. But what we can't do is ignore the rules of success. And these are 3 primary rules of success. Ignore the rules, you won't win the game. Follow the rules consistently and over time, you're going to win the game. So as Rick Bentley would want me to say, give these things some thought. And as usual, I'll see you at the top. So let's finish this up with some closing affirmations. And gang, go out there and be your best self, because your best self can accomplish anything